rewind it a little bit and go into the mentor part of it. Who was that mentor of you? And let's get into a little bit of the uprisings and Salazar and all that stuff. You can go through that.
So I want to say that this guy was he was one of the founders of the Brown Berets, and he was up there as far as the radical Chicano part. I don't mean just Chicanos that wanted to do good. They were talking about changing the system. He was one of those guys, but he ended up being a youth worker in this new community center, and I met him because they had built a center near my neighborhood, and I broke in the night before and graffitied all the walls. You know, with my Picasso chin, all my homies. You know how you put all the homies down,
the roll
call. I had all the images, but it wasn't tagging. It was quite extensive. You know,
It was art. Yeah, to him it was art.
So the next day I show up. They had a grand opening. I show up because I want to see my handwork in the light. You know, I had a little flashlight, but I wanted to see it in the sunlight. And they saw me and said, "Get that guy. We know it's him," because my name was up there. And they hired him, so he was supposed to get me and call the cops.
Yeah.
But what happened is he didn't do that, which is kind of good. He talked to me for the longest time. And at one point he says, "You know what? You're an artist. I see what you're doing here. This is actually artful. I mean, I don't like that you did this," because the poor guy had painted the place. He set up everything. I ruined it for him. But he gave me an idea that took me a while. I didn't quite agree with him. I told him to drop dead. You know how it is. And I'll tell you something about that. The reason why I would do that to these adults, because no adults could stand long enough, and I got rid of them before they would even try. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Why invest time, emotionally time with these people? They're gonna leave me no matter what. My parents threw me out. Everybody's gone. No teachers. I said, well, I'll treat them like bad now, and then they'll leave. He never left.
That was your defense mechanism.
Yeah, that was my defense mechanism. But you know, the guy never left. He always stood by me. He always kept telling me, "You got more in you. You're smarter than you think you are." And he eventually offered me a deal, which was pretty good. It says, I wanted to paint murals because he gave me the idea I could paint murals. And he gave me a book of Mexican murals. I didn't know anything about murals. All these Siqueiros, Orozco, Clemente. And then behind the book were these Mexican Mayan temples that had murals in and out of the walls. And I never knew this. So I got intrigued. Said, I want to know how to do that. And he says, okay, I'll help you learn. But then you got to go back to school because I had dropped out. I said, no, I don't want to go back to school. He said, dude, you got to be your palabra. If I teach you this stuff, you be your palabra. And I did, because in those days, palabra meant something.
Palabra means palabra. Yeah.
You had to. So he got me to paint murals. I did at age 17, about 8 murals with 13 gang kids. We were even in newspapers for doing this. And I would go to a rival neighborhood. They're not my enemies now. Estrada Courts, Barrio Nuevo, but at the time they were, because they were painting all the housing projects. Okay. And I was there to watch them and got to see them. I had a disguise kind of like.
You were there originally when they were painting this stuff.
The original ones, man. And now it's been there for 50 years. Yeah. And so I learned, and then I went to the Goa's Art Gallery, which is still around, and they taught me the basics, and we painted these murals, man. And sure enough, true to my word, I went back to school. And I actually was so behind in school, but I excelled in catching up, because in those days there was no GED. You had to get your units or you could make it. I actually got all my units. I went to night school. I went to, a summer school. I got all my units, and I graduated from this school. I didn't go cap and gown because I was too late for that. It's okay. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Bunch of white people anyway. But anyway, I didn't care for the cap and gown. But the point was, I excelled, and I made it. And he helped me every step of the way. And I will say one thing about him. He didn't save me. He gave me the tools, resources, and connections so I could save myself. Because the last time I was in jail, he wasn't there with me. In jail, the last time I was in the county jail, looking for many years in state prison, looking at many years in state prison, I decided to get out of heroin there. I decided to leave the madness there. I figured if I'm going to the state prison, I'm going to do it on my terms. That's where he had taught me.
Right.
And luckily, I didn't end up doing the state prison term. He got the judge to look at me and got people to show up in court, which is very helpful.
Why were you in jail for?
Well, I was assaulting police officers at the last. And what it was is I did something that no gangster would do. They were beating up a Chicana. She was already handcuffed, the sheriff's deputies, beating her up in a parking lot of an after-hours club. And I went in there to her defense. Oh. And you know that's not a gangster thing. No, but it was me, like, man, I'm tired of the cops beating up. She was already handcuffed. She's in the streets. She's screaming. They're kicking her, beating her up with batons. I go, nah. I stepped up. And they say I assaulted them. I didn't get a chance. There was 8 police. They jumped me.
Put the beat down on you.
And then, of course, they beat me down. They even
course.
drove me around before they went to the Norwalk substation. You know, they
That's the norm.
drove me around with 2 cops on the side. I'm already handcuffed, and they're beating me up and taking me to the substation.
Some people believe that those are myths, that those wouldn't happen. I think what it is, it doesn't happen to them, so they believe it doesn't exist.
It's a regular for almost every homie. Every homie's got a story.
Oh yeah, I
How
do.
this dude. Yeah. So I went through it, and then I was there in the county jail. Eventually, they went to the men's county jail, and then I was waiting to see what was going to happen. And this mentor, he got all the community, wrote letters on my behalf of the judge, brought people to the court. And the reason I mention this, because this is actually hopeful. A lot of guys go to court with nobody, not even their family.
Yeah, no support.
And people throw the book at you because you ain't got nothing. If you show a lot of love, that people care about you, maybe you made mistakes, but people vouch for you and they say, hey, man, this guy, he made mistakes, but he's got a good heart. He's help him out. You'd be surprised, I find, how many people, judges might actually help.
Right.
Because we don't use that. They come in there all solo, you know, the tough guy. Chingon, and then they give 30, 40 years of life later. But I was fortunate, so I never did the state prison time, which was probably best. I was all prepared. I was all prepared. I was like, you know, I wasn't scared of it. It's like, I'm ready to go. I wanted to go on my terms. I didn't want to go on heroin addict because you're owned by everybody.
Yeah.
But it turns out I didn't have to do it. But I walked out of the county jail the last time, and that was it. I've never been to jail for any criminal offense since then.
What year was that?
1973.
Nice. Were you on murder row for a little bit when they housed you over there?
When I was 16, I got arrested for a lot of things, including attempted murder. That fell by the wayside. I got arrested for the Chicano moratorium against the Vietnam War, and they were going to charge me for the murders of the people that died during the uprising.
Why? How are they trying
well,
to connect
they
that?
say that me and my homies started it. We were the ones that stole the liquor from the liquor store.
Oh, that's the one they were chasing.
Yeah. So we were the ones that were kind of started it. But it was just their excuse. They were already riot gear. They were already prepared. They're looking for any excuse. We gave them the excuse. Yeah. That's our fault. But they came in there and used us to attack everybody.
Isn't that's also where that famous journalist got killed by the
and
sheriff?
Then Ruben, they were going to get me for his murder
What's
too.
his name again?
Ruben Salazar.
Ruben Salazar.
So 3 people died. A lot of people injured. Several were arrested. But almost everybody that was arrested, 2 or 3 hours, they let them go. They kept 5 cholos longer, and then they put us in murders row. And we were going to look at all these murders.
For the murders, for the day.
Yeah, and they kept us there at least, I'm thinking, 10 days, nights and days. So we were there. I had a cell next to Charles Manson. It's part of the story. The first night I was there, the 2 big guys that were in my cell were trying to kill me with razor blade, but I'd already been in the street. You know, I tell people.
So it wasn't a single man cell?
No. You were all bunched up with a bunch of people. And I tell people, I used to tell them that I was scared, but I kept it. It's not true. I wasn't scared because you can't really hide fear. I was just a dude that wasn't scared, which is not cool.
Yeah.
I should have been scared. Any normal person should have been scared, would be scared. But if you know you've been in those situations, you really can't be scared. You got to look everybody in the eye and say, you're going to get me, but guess what? I'm gonna go down fighting. I'm going to go down, and if you don't get me, I told them, if you don't kill me, I'm going to find a way to kill you. They thought that was cool. You know, well, this guy's all right. And I saved my butt because I see that there was no fear in my eye, and I was trying to protect a 13-year-old kid that they had with us too.
Oh, they have kids in there.
None of us should have been there. I was 16. It's 18 and over in murders row.
Of course.
This is Harlem Justice Jail. They had us all there, teenagers, and they shouldn't have had that. It was all wrong. The whole thing was wrong. And then they let us go eventually, but I think the reason why is because all these Chicano activists were taking pictures. They were one of the first. It was Super 8 film, whatever it was. They were taking cameras and pictures, and it showed only the police beating up and killing people, including Ruben Salazar. There was pictures of all that. So they had to let us go because there was no proof that we had done anything. They could have said we started, but that's different. That's different than I actually murdered somebody.
Yeah, they shot Ruben with a canister to the face, right?
Tear gun canister into a bar, which these are tear gun canisters you're supposed to do a public outside.
Right.
They shot it right into the bar, which like, why would they do that?
The parade on August 29, 1970 was staged to protest the Vietnam War and the poor conditions that exist in the barrios of East LA. Over 20,000 Chicanos marched. Up to that time, it was the single largest event of solidarity ever held in East Los Angeles. The march, however, ended in violence, and the death of one man became a symbol for a movement that still lives on today. During the rioting and widespread chaos, 3 men were killed. One of them was Los Angeles Times columnist Ruben Salazar, who also was the news director of KMEX, the Los Angeles Spanish-language television station. After the rioting broke out, Salazar and a couple of friends dropped into the Silver Dollar Cafe on Whittier Boulevard for a couple of drinks. To this day, events leading up to his death are not clear. One thing is certain: Salazar was killed instantly by a tear gas projectile fired by a deputy sheriff. Based on reports, sheriff's officials claimed they were after 2 armed men that had entered the Silver Dollar. Through his columns in the Los Angeles Times, Salazar had become a powerful and influential voice for millions of Mexican Americans. For many Chicanos, like movie director and producer Moctezuma Esparza, Salazar became a symbol.
He was someone that was a role model for me, for many of us that went on into journalism and communications and entertainment.
An already angry community became incensed over his death. At a coroner's inquest, a deputy sheriff said he fired the projectile after giving a warning and ordering those inside to come out with their hands up. Survivors inside the bar said they did not hear the warning.
People in the barrios are suffering daily on the part of police.
Testifying was a young professor of Chicano studies at Cal State Northridge, Raul Reese. His photos of the event gave Salazar's death nationwide attention.
You don't want to give up your cushy job at the LA Times?
Today, 20 years later, the legacy of Ruben Salazar is the subject of the stage play August 29, now running at the Los Angeles Theater Center.
To even get involved with the Chicano community, but the more I experienced, the angrier I got. I began to feel the virulent attitude towards our people. It wasn't happening in some far-off corner of the world anymore. They were saying those things about me, about my people in my country. Then I started hitting back.
You want to know what happened to the cop that killed you? Nothing.
Now he's coming back to ask the same questions we were asking him 20 years ago. Why you not reporting in the community? Why you not saying what's happening to our community? Now he's coming back and asking us, what are we doing?
And sure enough, it apparently hit his head, blew his head out.
No charges ever came of it.
No, they actually know who the cop was. He
Right.
never. All the police that killed my homies and others got exonerated in those days. The only one that didn't was the San Gabriel police officer who in 1977 killed this 18-year-old guy from Sangra that I actually knew and I was working with. I was trying to help him. By then I was helping kids get out of gangs and everything. Yeah. This cop kidnapped him, killed him, and he got arrested and found one of the first police officers in the state of California to be convicted of killing somebody as a police officer and was given a life sentence. Except here's the story. 11 or 13 years later, he gets exonerated by the Governor Pete Wilson, the anti-Mexican governor.
Pete Wilson.
Yeah. And not only that, Pete Wilson hires him.
No way.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine? And they were going to make a movie of his life as a hero.
What's his name again?
Billy McIlvain. You guys should look it up.
Oh, I'm definitely.
Look it up. I've been finding some stuff because I would like to. We're working on trying to make a movie out of this story because it's an important story. The guy gets out, he dies of cancer, he's free, he's a hero to all the police officers. But he kidnapped this 18-year-old kid from Sangra, blew him away with these shotgun blasts and everything. He told the police that he had been kidnapped by 2 or 3 Sangra guys, and he lied. Yeah. And he actually got convicted, but then they let him go. You know how it goes.
You got a pardon.
Yeah. That's what happened. So with that story, those stories have to be told because they're the stories.
Absolutely.
When you see George Floyd and the murder there, it's the resonance of all these murders, so many in the black and brown communities.
Going on for decades.
That nobody could talk about before. And we didn't have the kind of video cameras now. Now you can see it. But even then, justice is barely opening the door, after all that.
So now you're getting out of the county jail. You never went back. How did your life start transitioning away from the gang and becoming who you are now?